So, okay, so why is marriage important? So when you see a question, it means it's actually a good idea to actually give them a chance, see if anybody wants to make a comment, see what they think, because you want to engage them, right? But you don't need to have a long discussion, but just get some ideas if they want to share. But here's the question. Marriage is important because of this question. Can you feel loved and secure in an uncommitted relationship where the other person can leave at any time? Right? Will you feel truly loved when you don't know if this person is, they may be a lot of fun. You may have strong feelings for this person, but there's no commitment. You don't know if they're seeing somebody else when they're not with you, right? Yeah. There's no commitment, right? As we spoke about in part 3, the value of having a public wedding is that the whole community is there and you're making a promise in front of them, your family, your friends, the whole community. And if you start to stray and your wife has some brothers, they're going to say, hey man, what's up? You promised to love and cherish our sister, and now I see you flirting with these other women. You better shape up, right? I mean, there's a value to a public commitment. Someone can say all kinds of things to you in private, right? No one's recording. Hopefully, no one's recording your interaction, right? So there is a difference. People say it's just a piece of paper. Okay, if it's just a piece of paper, why don't you want to sign this piece of paper, right? And then there's one more question. Why invest in a relationship that won't last? Think about this for a second. Marriage has a relationship has all kinds of challenges. Regardless of how much you say you love each other, you're going to have challenges. Sickness. People who are perfectly healthy can get sick. They can have a car accident. They can go bankrupt. There can be all kinds of challenges. Now, if you're not married to them, the response may be, well, I'm really sorry that you're sick or something, but, we're not married to each other. A relationship takes investment, right? But if there's no commitment, how much motivation do you have to invest? You actually have, when challenges come, if you're not married, you may feel, well, I'm not sure I want to invest, right? You're hedging your bets. Do you see that there is a difference? My point, people say, oh, there is a difference. Okay. Yes. All right. So, and let me talk about some of the benefits for couples who are married. Okay. The study at Carnegie Mellon University, married individuals have lower levels of the stress hormone cortisol than those who never married or were previously married. Okay, so they have less stress. That's one benefit. Prolonged stress is associated with increased levels of, so the fact that they have more cortisol means that there's more stress in the relationship, on average, people who are not married. And this interferes with the body's regulation of inflammation, thus promoting development of many diseases. So being married to somebody, I remember one woman, Maggie Gallagher, who's has written books about these issues, say, just being in the same bed with somebody that you're married to, she says, very calming for her as a woman. Just being in the same bed, there's being calming, not being alone. Yeah, Linda.
I was asked in college one time, well, what if they're cohabitating and in the same bed? Like, did they do the distinction?
No, that's what I'm talking about. It's not the same effect.
Okay.
Okay. It's not the same because there's a sense of security.
Yeah, there's a security there. It's not just we're having great sex and we're saving on the rent.
It's the married part.
It's the marriage.
The marriage part, it's not exactly this. Yeah. Okay, so then there's another level or stage of love that people do not often talk about, which is a stage of sacrificial or parental love. All right. And many people say this is the deepest experience, giving birth to another human being, seeing that the human being coming into existence that is reflecting. It's like it's looking at yourself in your child. You're seeing a being that has your DNA, or at least 50% of your DNA, right? And you're seeing this. And in this relationship, you know, with most people relationships, you're kind of measuring how much am I giving, how much are they giving. But with your child, is that, you know, do you say, well, you know, I've changed your diapers like 1,000 times, and how much you're giving back? I mean, most parents don't quite measure, like they're not measuring, right? The more you give, the more love you feel, right? The sacrificial love, it's like a level beyond romantic love, right? It's a different kind of love. So, and it's like a quiet type of heroism, right? You know, most of us will not become famous. Most of us may not be, you know, famous war heroes or something like that. But we all have the opportunity to have this heroic love of our children, of investing in our child and not wanting anything back other for them to be happy and to be a good person, right? Right?
Yeah.
So it's a different level, a different level. So children do benefit from acceptance by both their mother and father. Some people say, oh, you know, it doesn't really matter if you have both parents in your life. Baloney. Okay, the research shows children who feel accepted by both their mothers and fathers develop less hostility or aggression, healthy independence, positive self-esteem, positive self-adequacy, emotional stability, emotional responsiveness, and a positive worldview. Those are, don't you want those things for your future child?
Absolutely.
Right? Some of you may not have both your father and mother in your life. My parents were divorced when I was 13. So, you know, I didn't have all these things myself, but don't you want that for your future child? Maybe you didn't have that, but wouldn't you like to give that to your future child?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, of course. So there's another study. A good relationship with fathers helps sons to learn how to deal with stress, right? So, you know, as a young man, you're growing up and, you know, you're in situations that may be stressful. And just the fact that your father went through those things already and saying, don't worry, son, you can deal with this, right?
Yeah.
It's like those young men learn to deal with challenging situations, which as men, there's a good chance you're going to be in stressful situations. And when your wife is worrying about the fact that you just lost your job, you say, don't worry about it, it's going to be okay, right? And you know, the flood destroyed your house or your house burned down, and your wife is she's crying, upset, and hopefully the husband says, don't worry, we'll be okay, right?
Yeah.
Okay, sometimes it's the woman saying that. I know that, but yeah. So
It's just calming just to hear that.
yeah, just to say it's going to be okay, right? And then, you know, some people say, well, girls, they don't need a father in their life. I don't think. Okay, what message does a girl get from having a father in her life? You are worthy to be loved by a man. I love you, not because of anything you're going to do for me, or I certainly don't need you sexually, obviously, right? Right? You are lovable just because you're daddy's girl, right? That's a wonderful message that girls get by having a father. And there is research, by the way, that girls who have their biological father in the home, they start menstruating a year or two later.
Right, right.
I mean, there's a lot. There's biology there too, that whereas if there might be like a stepfather or another male in adult male, that's not true.
Right.
Yeah, so you can see there's a lot going on.
Also, the females, they don't want to disappoint their fathers
Right.
by becoming involved with the guy.
Exactly. Yeah, they don't want to disappoint their fathers. Yeah, that's right. Okay, and then so what about fathers' families? Unfortunately, in our country, there's been a 700% increase in unmarried births since the 1960s. And compared to other countries, you know, honestly, you look at, I looked at the research. We are really one of the worst countries in the world right now on this particular issue, even though we're much more wealthy than those countries and have more technology and so on. But we are not doing well in this area. So 4 in 10 US births are to women who are not married in this country. Single mothers work twice as hard, but their children are 6 times more likely to live in poverty. So look, I admire single parents who are doing their best and in many cases working a job and also taking care of their family by themselves. I admire them. Do you want to be the hardest working person in your community? No, no. But the children have less contact with their fathers and they usually have less financial support, and it's rough. It's a hard life, right?
Yes.
So, so I'm gonna give you 3 rules. If you follow these 3 rules, you have a 98% chance that you and your children will not be living in poverty.
Yay.
Do you want to know the 3
What are
rules?
those rules?
Okay,
Okay. You want to know.
Okay, here we go. Number 1, graduate from high school.
I can do that.
Number 2, get a full-time job.
I can do that too.
Okay. Number 3, wait until you're 21 and married before having children.
For sure.
Okay. If you follow these 3 rules, then you have only a 2% chance of living in poverty. Okay. If you break these 3 rules, you have a 74% chance, a 3 out of 4 chance that you and your kids will live in poverty. Okay, it's pretty clear,
Yeah.
right? Okay. So now I'm not putting people down who have made some mistakes and who there are people overcome. Okay. I'm not talking that this is like a death sentence or something like that. I'm just saying increase your odds of having an easier life than having a hard life. Okay. So you may be in this situation. It doesn't mean that you cannot succeed. I'm just saying, why don't you increase your odds of success and not having a hard life? Okay. All right. So now, so let's talk, we kind of summarized here. We go through stages of intimacy and love. So we all are born from the sexual love of our parents, and hopefully they were mature and good parents. So we receive, and then we grow, and you know, children are very selfish. I mean, I'm sorry to say this, but it's true. Okay. Babies are completely selfish, right? Okay. But they get a little bit older and they start to have friends, and they learn that they have to share. And, if I give you one of my French fries, you have to give me one of your cheese doodles or something. It's like very conditional relationships. And then you get a little bit older, you're becoming a teenager, and you start to have these infatuations and attractions, which are very natural, right? That's part of how we're designed, you could say. Now, so what if they're attracted and they feel like they've fallen in love with somebody and they go ahead and have sex? What could happen? Well, they could become immature parents, right? They could become a teen parent, and they can give birth to a child. But what type of love or guidance can they give their children? It's basically very immature, right? They're not mature themselves, right? It's like kids having kids, right? So wouldn't it be better if they waited and developed more lasting relationships, eventually make a marital promise to somebody who they really do care about, and then when they do become parents and they're married, they're committed to somebody, then the love that they can give is more mature, right? No one's perfect, but more mature, right? Do you see how there are two cycles here? There's like an immature cycle, a short-circuited cycle of immature teen parents, and there's a mature cycle where people, they wait until they're more mature, and then they make that marital promise. And the question is, which one do you want? You want the immature, short-circuited cycle, or you want the mature cycle? It's your choice, right?
Dr. Panzer, quick question.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to understand a little bit better how when they have sex as a teen in an infatuated state, and then they find themselves in you have that circular path along the way, right?
Right.
How the immature parents lands right before the children. Is that significance in where it lands on that circle? I don't know if I catch that fully.
Well, I mean, it certainly means that they are likely, well, it means that they had sex. There's a good chance there's going to be a pregnancy. If they don't destroy the baby, the baby will be born to a teen parent. Now, maybe it means that grandma is going to help raise the child, but did you ask grandma what she thought about that? You're putting a burden on the parent, or who become the grandmother.
Yeah, I guess what I'm asking is the where the immature line lands just prior to children. Is that implying that they have the maturity of children, so they shouldn't be parents?
Yeah, you could say that. They're still not grown up. Look, there's no shame in being an immature person.
Right.
It just means that you're young.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, we're not saying you're bad, but look, you're in your teens. Don't you want to be able to enjoy your teen life, have fun, and spend time with your friends instead of changing diapers all the time and staying up all night?
Also, if you look at all of our laws that deal with age, driving, getting a license, drinking alcohol, it's all based on brain development.
Right. Yeah. So as Linda's pointing out, the brain, we spoke about this in part 2, your brain is not fully mature until age 25. Okay. So even you cannot rent a car until you're 25 years old.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Maybe the insurance companies know something that most people don't.
Right.
Right.
Uh-huh. It strikes me too, it's interesting where you put that, the immature parents. And so you'll have immature teens attempting to be parents, but they won't do it well because they're not mature.
Yeah.
Then, as you outlined earlier, they're not going to raise those children well. We have to be careful with our words in the classroom, but they won't raise those children well. So the cycle will continue.
They might even have resentment towards their own children because they felt, well, if I didn't give birth to you, I would have been able to go to college or do some things I wanted to do, I was dreaming about. I had to give up certain career choices, or I didn't have a normal high school experience because I gave birth to you. And I wasn't able to have fun with my friends. You know, people can have resentment.
Right. Yeah. What I was getting at is, like you mentioned earlier, like your parents divorced when you were 13, and I had a similar experience. My parents divorced when I was 5. But what we're doing is we're kind of we're trying to break this cycle. We're telling the kids in our classroom, look, even if you were raised by immature parents, which I probably would not say in the classroom, but just so we're on the same page here, when you get to that point of teens and you could have sex, you could opt for lasting love, or you could opt for infatuation, you could opt for sex. You can break this cycle instead of you know, doing again what your parents did, right? That's what I gained from this cyclical journey.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a very good point. You're free to choose, right? Even if you experience some of the things we're talking about.
Right. Got it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. All right. Let's try to keep going on. I'm not going to go through this activity, the different types of relationships, but they may have done this previously.
Anything new?
No, it's the same activity, but just for those who are listening, we asked the young people to write down in the first column, what are people looking at when they're first attracted to somebody, and maybe focus on physical things, sometimes about their personality, sense of humor. In the infatuation column, it probably includes those things, but it may be more more emotional things, right, involved in the second column. It's usually more than just physical.
Or physical looks.
Physical plus personality and emotional things. And then the third column of husband and wife, we asked them to write down, what are people looking at when they are thinking of someone to be a husband or wife?
Spend the rest of your life.
Spend the rest of your life, this person to be the father or mother of your children. And you're much more serious about their character. Are they reliable? Are they hardworking? You know, sacrificial? It's like a different kind of list, right?
Yes.
So we're just trying to help them to see, and none of these things are bad. We're just saying they're different.
To be aware of it.
To be aware.
Not leading to your
right. And then in which type of relationship is the more likely to have security and trust? In which is having sex the right decision? If a pregnancy does occur, in which relationship is there more a stable basis for dealing with that? Obviously, it's with the more serious list. Yeah.
I ask students also, how many of you want to have a happy and successful love life? Well, I said, smart teenagers, they're not dating at a young age. They date after high school, and they don't date from column 1. They don't date from column 2. They don't even go out with somebody, because they don't even say date anymore. They don't go out with somebody unless they have those qualities.
Yeah, okay, that's a very good point that Linda's making. Some people, they won't even start seeing somebody without the third column in mind. You may be really cute. You may be really like very hunky and handsome. You may have a great personality, but if you don't have these things, I'm not interested in you. I'm not wasting my time. Right, that's a great point. Right, okay. Let's keep on going. Okay, so Joe raised before the issue of what does it mean to love somebody? And there was a psychologist at Yale University, Robert Sternberg, I believe his name was, and he wrote about this in some journal. And he had a 3-part model of love. So he said, love in the context of like a romantic relationship he's talking about. So there is passion, there is attraction in love. A passion and attraction is important, okay? this person is not just your roommate, potentially, okay? So there is a passionate attraction, physical attraction to somebody. And then their intimacy means there's a willingness to disclose your innermost thoughts and feelings with this person. That is also part of a love relationship. And then he said, the third part is commitment. Without that commitment, it's like having a house with no roof, okay? Right? Okay, you may have great passion and great even emotional self-disclosure with somebody, which may be very meaningful to you, but if there's no commitment, that's not love. So I definitely agree with what he said, but we actually added one more component, and we felt there's something missing, which is the issue of shared values. Because you may have great passion for someone, you may have great intimacy, emotional intimacy with somebody, and you may actually have someone who says they're committed to you. But if there's not shared values, then it could lead to a situation where you're living with someone and maybe even married to somebody, but their values are different from yours. You find out that they, even though you're very attracted to each other and you even have great communication, and this person has made even a marital commitment to you, but if your values are different, then you're fundamentally mismatched, right? You know, if there are things that you really care about, maybe you really care about like justice, or you care about your religious faith, or and this person doesn't really care about that, then at least you need to have discussion about those things, right? Now, it could be that they could say, well, you're more passionate about those issues. I'm not as passionate as you are, but I respect you and I'm willing to support you in doing that. You could probably negotiate that, you know, because we're not all exactly the same, right? But if you find that their values are, it's not just a question of them being not as passionate as you about certain issues, but you find out that their issues are opposite, their values are opposite to yours, and you're living in a divided house, where that's a problem, right? Do you see my point?
Especially because you made that a foundation of the house.
Yeah, this is the foundation of your house. So, and unfortunately, during the romance stage, you may never discuss these things. Look, when you have great passionate sex, or you have these feelings of love and euphoria, and you're staying up all night talking about it, you may never talk about some of these deeper issues. And that's why we're saying it's good to have actually couple counseling, because a good couple counselor will make you talk about these issues, right?
Yes.
So this is the house of love that will last through a big storm. Okay.
Beautiful. Dr. Penn, just a quick thing. Are we missing a T in that commitment word?
There's one T here and one T there. Where do you want to add a T?
Oh, maybe I'm wrong.
Okay, all
I
right.
thought there was a second T in the first part. All right.
No, I don't know. No, okay.
Yeah, it's up there.
It's okay. We spell check is good. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Now, a lot of young people, they like soulmate marriages. Marriage is no longer, compared to earlier generations, marriage is no longer focused as much on economic and domestic duties, more about shared interests and mutual happiness. And I think that's a good thing, right? But the problem can be that, so couples have, and especially in the infatuation stage, you feel like you are telepathic.
Absolutely.
You're finishing each other's sentences, right?
Always gonna be
Right?
that way.
But when that euphoria dies down a little bit, and you have to feel some really hard issues, what happens when Mr. or Mrs. Perfect seems less than perfect? And it's not quite as soulmate anymore. It's more like, wow, we're different. We are really different, right? So, you know, you need to, being soulmates is great, but what happens when it's not, right? So you have to be prepared for that, because there's a good chance that there's going to be a stage after the romance stage where it's called the wake up stage, and you say, who the heck did I get involved with here, right?
And they may have just been meant to be best friends.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why it's good not to rush. Okay, so the research, here's the good news. Married couples have more and better sex. And I have a new research that I put here from 2010. 9 out of 10 married people said they're very satisfied with their sex lives. Those with more than one sexual partner in the last year were the least emotionally satisfied. So those people who probably are not married, hopefully, you know, who are just having multiple partners, they're the least fulfilled, actually, you know. And then married women were likely to report that sex makes them feel loved, wanted, and taken care of. They were less likely to report that sex made them feel anxious, scared, or guilty. Think about this. If you're married to somebody, why would you feel anxious, scared, or guilty? If your husband's, you know, faithful to each other, you're faithful and you love each other, you're committed. But if you're not committed and you're not married, I could see why people would feel anxious, scared, or guilty. They're doing something that they know deep down is self-destructive, right? So, and why is this? It's because sex is more than physical. Sex has a social meaning. Sex within a hookup has a vastly different meaning from sex within a committed married relationship. Completely different meaning. And there's research that I just included. Delayed adult sex. Okay, I'm talking about adults now, and I'm not talking about teenagers, but I think it's good to know. Adult women who deferred sex for more than 6 months in this particular study reported more fulfilling relationships, whereas early sex in a relationship led to just living together, and if they did get married, less satisfying marriages. Yeah, so you start hooking up, and you know, the first date, the first month, you're in bed with each other. It may lead to you living together and maybe even getting married, but actually you're getting a less satisfying marriage because your standards were low, right? You're actually cheating yourself. Early sex leads to more infidelity. A study conducted in 4 countries, the earlier that young men initiated premarital sex and the more partners they had, the more likely they were to be unfaithful in marriage. So guys, okay, the earlier that you start having sex, the more partners you have, the more likely you are to sabotage your future marriage. Good job? No, no. Also, early sex means more divorce. Women who had sex in their teen years have a 100% higher rate of getting divorced if they do get married. And there's a huge study, a landmark study of 6,500 women, premarital sex with just one partner other than their husband raised the risk of divorce by 300%.
I love this one.
Okay, I mean, yeah, so, you know, and we're warning you not to hurt your future.
And where did the proof come from? In the 70s, if it feels good, do it. Our divorces shot through the ceiling and people were just having sex in the park.
Because people are just thinking about it in the physical context, right? Okay, Also, living together is not preparation for marriage. People who just live together, if they do get married, their marriages are less happy and they have a higher risk of divorce. And there are high rates of alcohol, drug use. The rate of depression among cohabiting couples is 3 times higher than among married couples. Okay, it's not the same. Married couples are less victimized by violence. Women who live together with a boyfriend are 60 times more likely to be assaulted by him than are women who live with their husbands. Never married males and females are 4 times more likely to be victims of violence. You think about it. If you're married to, think about this for a second. If you're married, do you have to go out to try to find a romantic partner? No, hopefully you're in bed with your romantic partner, right?
Right.
Okay, but if you're not married, then you may need to go out to bars or where people are drunk and doing stupid things, right? Okay. All right, so couples living together are often disappointed. They have less intimacy, more conflict than married couples. And now if you're living with somebody, there may be confusion about why doesn't the person I'm living with want to get married? Is it that they just don't like marriage or they don't like me, right? So there's a question mark in the air. Now, one thing I want to point out to young people is your uneasiness about getting married and marital roles. You can talk about that. You don't need to have the same marriage that your parents had. Maybe your parents had a certain, like, very traditional type of marriage. You can negotiate what kind of marriage you want, right? You can create anyway, just to be aware in case you're kind of rebelling against, our timekeeper is okay. Let me just see. Okay, let me just we'll just one more and then we'll break for lunch. Married men who cohabited are less committed. Okay, married men who lived with a woman, they're more likely to marry a woman they would not have married had they not been living together. So you may think, wow, we were living together, it's more likely that we'll get married, but actually you're getting a less committed husband. Okay, and the Scott Stanley, who's a researcher at the University of Denver in Colorado, what he advises is decide, don't slide. Okay, the value of deciding to marry someone that you're not living with is you're making a choice, whereas if you're living together with somebody, you're already having sex, you're already involved with that person, and the easy thing to do is to get married to that person because you're already living together. So it's an easy thing, and then your parents and your friends saying, how come you guys don't want to get married? Why don't you get married? And you're kind of sliding into it without choosing.
Say, oh well.
Yeah, so oh well, we might as well do it, right?
Yeah.
Whereas, yeah, so that's what he advises. Okay, all right, we're going to take a break and have lunch, and we'll be back in a minute. All right. Well, okay, I'm sorry. I didn't.
How long is the break, Dr. Panzer?
Half hour break.
Half hour. Okay. I have until about 2:15. Do you think we can finish up the final session by then?
Okay, we're going to start again. Continuing part 4. So here we go. Okay, here we go. Okay, so we already discussed about this topic. So Right, okay. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about the health benefits. So research finds that marriage is literally good for the heart, okay? So the study of 2 million men and women found that those who are married were 42% less likely to die from coronary heart disease, 55% less likely to die from stroke. Isn't that interesting? And those who never married were more than twice as likely to die early than those who had been in a stable marriage throughout their adult lives. So it definitely has an effect, it does. And married couples are happier. Okay, this is a story based on an economist. He said, a lasting marriage seems to be worth $100,000 a year. That's because all else being equal, a married person is as happy as a divorced or not yet married person who makes $100,000 more than the married person. Okay, so what are they saying here? Saying, you know, having wealth does increase happiness, although after you reach $75,000, you know, the effect is not that, you know, it starts to decrease, right? But still, a married man who makes $100,000 less than a divorced or not married person is just as happy as the richer guy, okay, because he's married, okay, and I guess the wife too. So it's worth, anyway, it's an interesting way to look at it. Okay, so now here we would write the letter to your future spouse. So this is in the LoveSmart workbook, activity number 13. So we imagine that they're writing a letter to the person that someday they may get married to. And they're talking about the decisions that they're making and, you know, what they're hoping for and so on. Because we want them to visualize that future person, right? Because if they don't, if you know, let's face it, the current culture doesn't really encourage you to think about that future person that you'll be with, right? So, you know, it's a way of helping them to, but many of them will be married, many of them will become parents with somebody, and that's the purpose, right?
If I could just interject,
yeah.
Typically in the middle schools, the kids still think it's writing a letter telling the spouse how they should be, not realizing to find the right one, you have to become the right one. So that takes a little more emphasis. You're writing to them what you're doing in your life to become a better spouse material. Right. Now, we usually do this activity with high school students, not with middle school, because it's a big jump for a like a 12 and 13-year-old. Oh, maybe I did it with high school.
Oh, high school.
So
oh, okay.
Yeah,
oh, I see. Yeah, I see your point. Yeah.
Yes, definitely high school.
Yeah. Okay, so just to give kind of what the trends are, more young couples are delaying marriage. In 2000, 35% of young adult couples ages 25 to 34 had never married. By 2009, 46% had never married. So the trend is to delay getting married. So, you know, while we do encourage people to delay marriage, at least until age 21, the benefits of waiting a lot longer are decreasing, you know. So but of course, you know, you want to find the right person, so you may have to wait, right? So anyway, and then, you know, the researchers are wondering, is this because of economics? You know, they're worried about like having it. Some people think I need to have a nice house first before I can get married. But that's not true. Not true. Right? Or there's a fear of commitment. You know, the culture is not really supporting it that much, right? So divorce is becoming less common in America. Divorces decreased 18% from 2008 to 2016. But fewer couples are getting married to begin with. So there's plus and minus, you know. And in general, the more education, the lower the divorce rate. So, you know, more education and kind of becoming more mature, it is helpful, right? So
I have a philosophy because they stuck with their education,
Yeah.
even when they didn't want to, they're thinking of the goal. I kept thinking maybe that.
yeah,
helped
there
them.
may be a selection effect, right? You know, it may not necessarily be a causal thing.
Right, correlation.
Yeah. Okay, so now we want to warn you though, a hostile marriage is not healthy, okay? They at Ohio State, they studied the effect that marital stress has on the body's immune system. Among couples showing high levels of hostility towards each other, wound healing took 2 days longer than among couples with little animosity. So they actually stuck needles into people and measured how long it took for it to heal. It's a little bit of a questionable study.
They got paid a lot.
Yeah. The blood samples showed that hostile couples had an immune system response linked with heart disease, cancer, and diabetes. So again, that's why it's not a good idea to rush into marrying somebody, right? You don't want to have a hostile marriage for sure. Okay, so here we go. To reduce emotional and behavioral problems for your future child, to lower the rates of drug use, sexual involvement, and dropping out of school for your future child, get married before having children. Okay? So you're giving a gift to your future children. Are most married couples faithful? Okay. I checked the most recent research on this. 80% of married men are faithful. 87% of married women are faithful. Okay, so, you know, people, actually, I'm sorry, I should have asked this as a question. I'm sorry. It's a question. Okay, are most married couples faithful? And you ask the class what they think. And probably, they would probably say, oh, most of them are not faithful because the culture seems to trash talk marriage, right? And then I share the research, okay, which they may be surprised about. Okay, and so predictors of marital success, and this is based on Prepare Endure. They did research for their their marriage counseling and surveys. Number one, realistic expectations. Okay, if you're a very depressed person and you know you have a lot of problems that you've not resolved yourself yet, and you think that marriage is going to solve all your problems and it's going to be perfect heaven, that's not realistic. Okay, so realistic expectations, because you need to work, each of us need to work on ourselves first, right? Okay, number two, a positive outlook. Okay, if you or your person you're marrying are kind of always negative, always complaining, that's not good, right? Communication skills, the ability to communicate with somebody and not to get very emotional, you know, but able to kind of like rationally communicate, understand what the other person is thinking, and being able to resolve conflict, right? Conflict resolution. You're going to have conflict in your marriage, okay? You know, sometimes people think, well, we love each other. We agree with that. We agree with each other about everything. Okay, you're still in the romance stage, right?
Yeah, right,
Okay.
right.
You haven't had your first fight.
You didn't have your first fight yet, so you're going to need conflict resolution skills, right? And number five, religious orientation. Being active in a church is also a predictor of marital success. Okay.
Wow, wow, wow.
So, all right. Now, this is an interesting discussion here. I asked students, this is like a real blunt discussion, but basically we're asking, in the stages of physical intimacy, from just like holding hands or seeing each other and going all the way, what are the steps? What is the sequence that you see? So I might give them a chance to look at these stages, and I let them shout out whatever they think the first step is and the second step is, and so on. And they usually do not get too far. And then I say, well, actually the research shows, and this is by Desmond Morris, who studied the behavior of, actually he's studying behavior of apes, actually. And then he decided to study human beings, okay? And he's a social scientist, and he's just studying how people in 5 different cultures, their mating behavior, okay? He just is just studying, like, what are the steps? Okay, this is what he found. So the progression of physical intimacy. So eye to body was first, eye to eye, making eye contact, voice to voice, hand to hand, hand to shoulder, hand to waist, face to face, which means kissing, right? Hand to head. I thought that was interesting. You don't usually let people touch your head, right? It's not something you let anyone do. Hand to body, like physical touch of the body. Mouth to upper body, touch below the waist, and then sexual intercourse. Okay, now why am I talking about this? The reason is because he found that if a couple breaks up, they've gone, they've gone through some of these stages, and let's say they break up. If the couple, the two people, if they find new partners, his research found they don't want to start back at the beginning. They want to keep progressing from where they stopped in terms of physical intimacy. But the problem was that the bonding was weak. If you skip these early stages of like holding hands, right? Of just like small steps of intimacy. If you skip that, which is normal, especially we talk about dating older, like girls dating older guys. They've had a lot more experience in this area than you have, and they're not going to want to just hold hands for a year or two, okay, right? So the reason we talk about this is because these very innocent, small steps of being close to somebody, they're important. And if you skip over this and advance to, hookups where you're in bed, like quickly, you're actually you're weakening the bond. Okay. All right. So, okay, we're finishing up here. So what justifies sex? Okay. So one view is physical. It's about fun, pleasure, and sex can be pleasurable. I do not deny it. But there's something called the hedonistic paradox. Do you know the Rolling Stones song, Can't Get No Satisfaction? Yeah, exactly. So they're writing about someone who has all the sex they want with beautiful girls, basically, but they can't get no satisfaction, okay? Because you're treating someone as an object, and it's ultimately empty. There's no emotional union there. It's just physical, right? Right. So that really does not work. So then the next justification is sex for love, which is a very powerful thing, right? We all want love, and a natural outcome of romantic love is being physically intimate. It is. But the problem is few things. Number one, the changeability of emotions. If it's an emotional thing, emotions change, right? And there's also the anxiety about the future. I guarantee you, if a guy and a girl get in bed with each other, immediately, certainly the next morning, the girl definitely, and probably maybe both of them, say, what does this mean? Do we have a future together? And they're having anxiety about the future, right? So, and that's showing that there needs to be more than just love, quote, love, right? Emotion. And as we were talking about before, some people are addicted to quote, love. It means like cloud nine, drug cocktail, dopamine love, right? So that emotional high, and they just end up meeting people, having this high, breaking up, and then dumping that person, and they're never able to settle down. Okay, and this ignores the work of loving another person, dealing with differences, issue of commitment, but a lot of other issues that this model does not work for. So then there's another justification, which is for partnership and procreation, as a natural outgrowth of their love for each other. But this is obviously, this is good in terms of raising children, right? It's a good context, but some couples, they can become kind of dry, right? They miss that, they become, I've seen this where one or both are, they're workaholics, or in some cases the mother forgets about her husband and focuses on the kids, right? Okay, she said, my main responsibility is the kids and my husband is sort of an afterthought, right? And they don't invest in their relationship. So that's why it's very important, especially when you do have kids, to have a date night with each other and to keep investing in your relationship. Otherwise, your relationship will become kind of stale, right? So really, when you separate pleasure, emotional intimacy, and procreation, you can end up losing all three. So that's why there's an argument for what some people call undivided love, which people have a desire, I believe, of total possession of each other and an undivided commitment, body, heart, and future. All those things are part of your relationship, right? You're not kind of compartmentalizing those things and those needs. Pleasure, intimacy, procreation, and ownership are united, I would say, only in marriage. There's really nothing to compare with, compete.